First of all, we're just going to talk a little bit about getting your image onto the paper. Now, I am using today the 24 by 30 size piece of paper. I'm using grey not for any particular reason, but just it's a colour I had in a new pad. It's not one I've actually used before, and I thought I would try it. But I have also done this, and it works really well on a smaller size, on the 18 by 24 pastel mat. But I find, particularly if I'm trying to get my image onto it, that an A4 fits nicely into this size. And I have a choice of either tracing. Now this is proper tracing paper. This is a photograph, and this is greaseproof paper, which isn't brilliant, but if all you want to do is get the outline of the boat accurate, it just about gives you enough to work with. So it's a bit of a cheaper option, and if you haven't got tracing paper to hand, that's a help. But I am actually going to trace it because I think for me that's the easiest. It's more time well, I think it's more time consuming. I'm going to use just a normal pencil for the first bit. In fact, I'm going to use a pen because it's going to be harder for you to see otherwise. That's not working. Now, you can, and it would make sense, to tape just a little bit of masking tape like we put our picture on with. So, just to stop the paper slipping around. There we are. Now the thing is, it's these angles here that are difficult, which is one of the reasons I want to make it as easy for myself. And we're not cheating. What is the point of working hard to produce a piece of art that doesn't look anything like the subject you're painting? Make life easy for yourself. I know there are purists, but we do this for fun, don't we? And it's particularly useful for animals. I think sight drawing for animals and people is so difficult because you only need to be a millimetre out for a feature and it actually doesn't look like that person anymore. So this is the most long-winded part of this process. And of course, if you're watching the recording, you can speed through this bit. But I just love the colours in this, and I probably love the colours in this because they're complementary, aren't they? The blue and the orange. And it's difficult to see that there. I took this photo in Cornwall on a beautiful autumn day a couple of years ago. And there were sort of 3 boats sitting together, but I particularly liked this one. And I've painted it many times. I've done it in quite a few workshops. And it's just a really rewarding one to do. And there's lots of techniques you get to cover in this as well. So we'll be looking at water, layering. I think I am actually going to do a wet blending because it works so well for water. And talking to myself. Yeah, we'll do some wet blending, I think, today. Now these are the ones, now the trick with this is to paint your underpainting without losing these lines because they're really quite difficult to put back in once you've lost them. don't know why I love doing boats so much. They are so difficult as well. So this makes myself hard for myself. I think it must be because I grew up near the water. And this is quite a hard bit to get because you want it to be completely lined up with these, with the reflection underneath. I suppose it does make it a bit like painting by numbers, but does that matter? Now, I know I said I wouldn't put a selection of a choice of pastels on the page, and there's a reason for that, because it's not until you put the colours down next to each other you can judge whether you like them or not. And that's really one of the most important parts of doing art, is having your own aesthetic and your own eye. And it allows you to be a bit more creative as well. What is it about turquoise? Is it because it just reminds us of the sea, that we love it so much? I find it's my favourite colour. It's a happy colour. And then that's the outside. That's the lighter bits. So really what I'm trying to do is look at the value changes and just sketch in where the big value changes are. You can see here this all disappears into the boat, but there's a sharp edge here. And our eye is automatically drawn to where the lightest lights and the darkest darks meet, which is going to be around here. And this then comes up there. So that's my tracing. I'm just going to check where this comes down, because I want that boat to be, it comes around here. So I want that to look realistic. Now, what we do is we turn it over and we do it all again, but this time I'm going to do it all in a colour that will transfer onto my paper. So if you're using a light coloured paper, you want a dark pastel pencil. It doesn't have to be a pastel pencil. One way to do it is to, you can use the sharp edge of a pastel. A hard pastel might work. We'll try. And then it's when you draw it on the other side that it will come out again. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? So let me see if I can show you with this. So this is an orange, so it's going to show up on my paper. So when I turn it back this way and put it in place, and do it like a brass rubbing, that will come off. All right, so that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to go back in and do a bit more, but I am actually going to use a pastel pencil, but it doesn't matter, as you can see, if you don't have a pastel pencil. Just use a normal pastel. I think a hard pastel will work. That one I just used was fairly hard. So therapeutic. over. I've got to position him back on those lines that I started earlier, which is fine because I can just about paint those out if I need to. I'm going to position him there, and I'm not going to draw, I'm going to literally, like a brass rubbing, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't all transfer beautifully. I'll just need the key shapes and some of the key pieces. Yeah, that's working. I am all for making things as simple as possible and getting things done in the easiest way. I'm a bit of a generalist and I like things to happen quickly. Right, that certainly gives me enough to be going with.